In this video, I'm reviewing the AMZChef juicer, so let's get started. Thank you to AMZChef for sending me their latest juicer, for which they've asked me to create an unbiased review for. Inside the box is a power base, 2 containers, the juicing bowl, which comes assembled to the feeding container. To remove it, turn it counterclockwise and you'll see that the main feeding container has built-in durable stainless steel filters. It seems like it's using a 3-part process, starting with coarse holes, then fine, then ultra-fine holes with side ventilation openings. So hopefully this will break down the fruits and vegetables pretty well. The feeding container has a large 5.2 wide feed mouth, and the secure lid can open for placing larger food items or for holding batches before beginning to process. Otherwise, you can use the smaller center hole for dropping in food items nice and slowly. The juicer will not operate when the lid is open. Inside the feeding container, you'll see the auto cutting wings. This will be the first phase of breaking down the ingredients before pushing it through this opening into the 3-stage filter process, and then finally passing it down into the juicing bowl. The juicing bowl is where the auger is attached. To remove it, simply pull it up and out. The auger surrounding is made of durable plastic with a metal shaft. The juicing bowl has a silicone cover which can be opened to make it easier to clean out the pulp. Be sure to remember to close it before you begin so that no juice can pass through it. And then you have 2 outlets, one for the pulp and one to release the juice, which has an anti-drip cover. The base features a sleek, durable stainless steel body with side vents for effective heat outflow, keeping the juicer cool during operation. I also like that the base has suction feet to keep it in place when working. And I'll just show you the power button for on, off and reverse is located at the back here. Other than the main power base, you'll want to wash all the other parts before using the machine. And I also like to wipe down the base to remove any shipping and packaging residue. Then to assemble the juicer, place the juicing bowl on top of the base, slotting the outlets into place. Next, install the auger by pushing it down all the way until it's sitting firmly in place. Then place the feeding container into the juicing bowl and rotate it clockwise until the handle is lined up with the arrow at the back here and it's secured into place. Position your containers to catch the pulp and juice, and now we're ready to start juicing. I began with orange juice. It's always best to peel and remove as much of the rind, otherwise your orange juice will be bitter. For the first try, I decided to cut up the orange into 2-inch cubes just to avoid any surprises which may create extra work for me. Switching on the machine and then dropping them into the center opening, letting the wings rotate them through the opening into the filter area. The machine handled it well with the pulp smoothly flowing out of the outlet. The juice bowl doesn't have any markings for maximum hold capacity, but I decided to release the juice to make room for the next orange, which I left whole and dropped it into the feed container. I then used the food pusher to try to push the orange closer to the cutting wings, and instead I think I just pushed the orange flat against the wing that it couldn't get to the tip to be able to get pushed through to the opening. Perhaps I should have dropped it more closer to the tip of the wing so that when it spins it would begin cutting and passing it through. So I ended up having to reposition the orange and began juicing again, and it cleared it all. So a total of 3 oranges gave me 300 ml of orange juice. The pulp is wet because of the high juice content in oranges, and it's nothing new compared to other juices. Taking a look at the filter and the auger area, firstly there was no pulp trapped under the auger, which I thought was fantastic. So far I've used juicers where there's always pulp, just seems to get trapped underneath. Any pulp wrapped around the auger is normal. The juice bowl did have some chunks of orange pieces in it. Not sure why, perhaps it had something to do with the way I dropped the broken pieces in. And then I used the thin side of the cleaning brush to pull out the pulp from the outlet. Taking a look at the filter, there was hardly any pulp trapped in the filter, and I just used the bigger side of the cleaning brush to remove any pulp that was in there. Pouring out the orange juice, you can see the vibrant orange color. And if I just use my spoon, you can see very tiny pieces of pulp. But to be honest, I see this in almost all of my orange juice testing. And I'll say it again, if it does bother you, you can always strain it out. But it's so little that it really doesn't bother me. Next, I moved on to juicing a pineapple, which I cut into roughly 3-inch pieces so they could fit through the center hole. The cutting wings had no issue rotating the pieces through the feed container and towards the filter. The juicing bowl filled up pretty quickly, and I extracted about 200 ml of juice before deciding to continue the next batch, this time filling up the feeding container. Since pineapple has a stringy texture, the process did require a bit more effort. I used the thin side of the brush to take out some of the pulp from the outlet. I also noticed that there was quite a bit of pulp built up inside the filter area, and I just didn't want it to cause any blockages. So I decided to remove the feed container and take out some of the pulp and clear out the auger before running the juicer again. And you can see the stringy pineapple that I was able to release from the outlet. That definitely would have caused the juicing process to slow down. You could see how well the wings were rotating, pushing all the chunks of pineapple through the opening into the filter, and how quickly the pulp was being pushed through the outlet once I'd cleared it all. Similar to the orange juice, there were tiny bits of pulp that managed to escape through the filter, but it's not very noticeable. Since I decided to juice the whole pineapple, I did have to empty out the pulp from the filter a couple of times, otherwise it would have clogged up due to it being so stringy in texture. On the plus side, I did notice a lot of the foam being held back as I released the juice. From one full pineapple, I extracted about 500 ml of juice, enough to fill 3 glasses. The vibrant yellow color of the juice was beautiful, and the sweet taste of the pineapple was amazing. Next, I decided to do grapes. Since I've never tested grapes in any of my juicing videos, I started with 1 cup of green grapes and just popped them through the center opening in the lid, and the juicer had no issues with them at all. So I continued by slowly adding another cup of grapes. A total of 2 cups of grapes gave me 300 ml of juice. Even as I poured it all out, you can see that there's nothing at the bottom of the container. And if I show you with my spoon, you can see that there's absolutely no pulp or bits in there. So the texture of the pulp from the grapes was quite mushy. The high juice content left the pulp a little wet. And when I opened up the filter area, you can see that the filter was able to catch the tiny little seeds from the grapes. So that was very impressive for sure. Finally, moving on to apples, I decided to do a yellow golden apple this time. And just to show you how deep the feed container is, you can fit in 2 apples and still close the lid. It's always good to do 1 apple at a time to avoid any problems. I was expecting the apple to go around and around, so I had my food pusher ready, but the cutting wings went to work so fast that it just ripped the apple to shreds. I was so impressed at how well it broke down the apple without struggling or making any grinding sounds. Unfortunately, my choice of apple was bad. Since the apple was softer in texture, it basically turned it into a mushy applesauce. So once I cleaned out the juicer, I tried again using red apples, which were firmer and had a slightly thicker skin. Again, the machine went to work on it straight away, breaking down the apple with no issues. It did make a grinding sound, I'm going to say that it was because of the thick skin. But it was able to filter out the pulp together with the skin. Taking a look at the juicing bowl, you can see all the foam separated from the juice. So when I released the juice, majority of the foam remained inside the bowl. So again, 2 red apples gave me 300 ml of juice. And when I pour it out, you can see how pure and rich the apple juice is. The filter area wasn't bad at all. There wasn't any chunks of apple or skin trapped in there. And it all filtered through to the pulp outlet, where you can see it was fairly dry and it had lots of skin broken up in it. I was also glad to see that there was nothing trapped under the auger and that the juicing bowl contained a lot of the foam. I had some leftover peeled and cut mangoes, so I figured why not juice this too to see how it does, because I haven't done mangoes either in any of my juice videos. So I put about, I think, a cup of mangoes directly into the feeding container and let it run. And now I know why I never did mangoes before, because I knew that it would be quite mushy and I wasn't sure if it was going to be able to squeeze out any juice. It did leave the pulp mushy, but surprisingly it did take out some juice, which was very rich and thick, and now I know why I never do mango. Once I was confident of the juice's performance, I decided to really put it to the test. I added a variety of fruits and veg to the feed container, leaving them whole. I was all out of grapes, so I used 2 mandarins, peeled, about half a cup of carrots, a 4-inch piece of ginger with its skin on, an apple and a peeled orange because I didn't want my juice to be bitter. I did have to rearrange some of the ingredients to be able to close the lid. Then I let the juicer get to work and it went through the ingredients, chopping everything without any problems. And just look at those blades whiz through all the ingredients, chopping everything up. I opened the anti-drip cover just to allow the juice to continue to flow out, so I didn't have to keep stopping the machine. And you can see all the pulp coming out of the pulp outlet without clogging at all. The only issue it did have was the soft orange getting caught on the tip of the blade right at the end. Maybe I should have put the orange before the apple, because the apple may have given it a bit of a push. Taking a look at the pulp, you can see that it's actually fairly dry, even though the orange has a lot of juice content, and when you do it on its own it is a little wet, but when you mix it in with all the other fruit, it's actually fairly dry. My hand wasn't really wet at all. And because I had the anti-drip cover open, all the foam did come out with the juice, whereas earlier on I had it closed, so when I did release the juice it was able to hold back the foam. If you do want to separate the foam from the juice, you can always use a strainer. And as I poured it into the glass, you can see that there's very little bits at the bottom of the container here. If I stir it with my spoon, you can see very little tiny bits of pulp, but I'm going to go the extra mile and strain it just to show you that there's hardly any pulp in there. And taking a look at the filter, you can see that there is nothing stuck underneath the feed container. There are no chunks of food or skin trapped under there. The auger is clear all underneath as well, very similar to the earlier results. And the juicing bowl does have a little bit of the stringy texture from the ginger, but other than that there was nothing major stuck in there. Overall, the AMZChef juicer delivers a solid performance. When compared to other juicers, I noticed that the feed container didn't move as much during operation, but the noise output was the same as others I've tested. The auto cutting mechanism with dual crushing blades reduces the need for a food pusher, making juicing easy and quick. I was very impressed with how well it handled apples, getting to work immediately. The type of fruit and vegetable you're juicing matters. If you notice pulp buildup in the filter area, it's a good idea to clear it out to avoid any blockages, especially with stringy food items. You almost always need to do this. I'd avoid using softer fruits like mango or yellow apples since they will just become mushy as it passes through the stainless steel filters. The juicer is just over 16 inches tall and it's easy to assemble and clean. It is BPA free and the juicing bowl, containers and the food pusher are all dishwasher safe, but I prefer to wash everything by hand so that I can catch most of the pulp in my strainer to prevent it from clogging my drains. Per the instruction manual, it has a continuous run time of 10 minutes and you need to give it at least 10-minute breaks in between to prevent overworking the juicer. Alright guys, I hope you found the video useful. If you do have any questions or comments, please leave them below and I will leave links to these products in my description box if you guys want to check them out. If you are new to my channel, do consider subscribing and I hope to catch you in my next video.